All right, y'all. So, welcome to M.A.S Media's first inaugural episode. I want to introduce myself. I am Michael Weme, and I want to give my co-host also a chance to introduce themselves as well.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? I'm Aaron. You can just call me A Dubs.
Hey, Dubs.
Yeah.
Uh huh.
You know,
Okay.
you white.
All right. Okay.
If it ain't white, it ain't right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh, no, not like this.
No, yeah, no, yeah.
Not
Hey,
like
what?
It's a
this.
damn not like that.
Please. My next co.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. My name is Solomon. My friends call me Solo for short.
All right. Perfect.
Right, right.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. So, I guess one other day we'll get into the nicknames that you guys have chosen for yourselves. But and in that time, I definitely want us to sort of I want each of us to kind of give like a nice little stops about ourselves. Just so that way we can, give you guys a little insight as to like kind of who we are and what we're looking to accomplish with this brand new spanking channel. I guess I'll start. So, as I mentioned before, my name is Michael. Everybody calls me Big Mike since we're doing nicknames. And I think my point with this whole podcast is sort of to just bring a new type of energy as far as bringing the certain types of social commentary to certain topics that you don't really hear it from a sort of realistic, sort of like unfiltered sort of point of view. So hopefully the with this podcast, me and my co-host will be able to provide you guys with that sort of content and be able to branch off and give you a whole bunch of other different types of things as well.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Straight 100. All right. You guys want to start on the topic today?
Absolutely, absolutely. This is a big topic that I know is going to hit home for definitely one of my co-hosts, and he can speak on and elaborate on that as when we take it over to him. But the topic of the day is education, right? And especially with all this stuff going on with COVID-19 and college loans being payments being suppressed, so not people not having to really have to pay on them, has brought in the question of kind of like do should we just eliminate them once and for all, eliminate the payments once and for all, because it's really what is the point. But I
That's a
guess
great.
so, and I think that's another one of the points we're going to be tackling today. But first, we kind of just wanted to just talk about education as a whole when it comes to the United States, and sort of where our place lies when it comes to education, and where do we see ourselves compared to the rest of the world. So I'll let my co-host sort of lean in and provide some
Yeah.
feedback.
Well, for us to be quote unquote number one, we are definitely not number one in education, which is concerning. But I feel like a lot of Americans don't realize it or they just don't care. Because if I'm going to be number one, me personally, I want to be number one. Undisputed. I am the best. I am what people the pinnacle
Hmm.
of success. And I feel like at one point America was number one, and now we're just number one in a whole bunch of things that we shouldn't be number one in.
So I want to get a little bit more on that from you because you said that I got something that excuse me you said something that I think is very powerful. As far as saying that you don't think we care as much anymore. So what makes you say that? I'm curious.
Um, I feel like, for instance, now I can only speak on my own personal experiences.
Hmm.
I can't sit here and tell you that I know anyone, and I'm 30 years old. I can't sit here and tell you I know anyone that has ever went and voted for school board or anything related to that at all, let alone local politics itself.
Mm.
People just let the powers that be take control, and that's why you get people that have been mayor for 5 terms in a row and been on a council since I was 10 years old. And things don't change. It's the status quo. People, if it's not broke, quote unquote, don't fix it. But
Right.
I think it is broke. But I think it's breaking on such a slow scale. Like, for instance, the frog in the pot, you turn the heat up very slowly, and then the frog doesn't jump out because he didn't realize that it went from freaking
Oh,
lukewarm
oh,
to
damn.
boiling water. And I think that's pretty much what it is with the American people. You know, it's getting bad so slow that they don't really understand it.
But my thing is like, do you think it's slow? I think it's slow in certain areas of the country, but in, let's say, for instance, in the inner cities, I think this has been a overreaching problem for many generations. You know, even leaning back into like the early 1900s. I don't think it's something that you know just kind of cascaded slowly into where we see it today. I think it's just literally been like a bowling ball effect, based upon, like you mentioned, like people sitting in certain places of power and such, and not really listening. And I think that's where a lot of the people that definitely have to cut that out. Um, but it's put a lot of the people that live in these certain certain, sorry, areas of the world, put them in positions where now they don't know what to do when it comes to their futures, and then that's where gang violence and such come into play as a result.
True, but there's one thing though that you pointed out. I want to touch on. You said like even in the 1900s, it's been bad in the cities. But we have to remember one thing: that pre desegregation, yes, but when they started to segregate, that's when you started seeing these private schools pop up, and then the inner cities are what you think of today
Right.
with the demographics. And yeah, now they are bad, but there was a point in time where it was whites and blacks and everybody in the same school, and that was it. That was the curriculum. They all shared it, and then yeah, so it has changed again. Is what I'm saying.
Well, you know what? I mean, even to correct myself, I mean, I won't even say like the 1900s, because if you speak to a lot of older Caucasian people, they'll tell you like, oh, I used to live in, they'll use that as the argument. Like, I used to live in Bensonhurst. Like, I remember watching this. I don't know if you guys have ever watched um the Louis Farrakhan sit down, um, on that he did one of his first major public interviews that he did on. Can't remember the host's name. Donahue. Sorry, he did that interview with Donahue in the late '80s, early '90s, and one lady, they gave it to the audience to give questions, right, and to like give comments. And the first thing that this older white lady says is, "Oh, I used to live in Bensonhurst. So, by the way, like, as to kind of say, oh, well, it's not only just black people that are dealing with issues, in these ghettos. Like, it's not only black people that live in these, certain types of areas. But I'm like, you probably
Nah,
you're probably born out there in like the 40s and 50s before gentrification took hold.
bro,
You left.
hold on. I hate to cut you off. Don't even start me on Bensonhurst, bro. Bensonhurst is an Italian part of Brooklyn, bro.
Absolutely,
I can't walk through there right now. So I don't know what she's talking about. Like, oh, she can compare. Nah, Bensonhurst is not Bedford Stuyvesant. That's not Brownsville.
absolutely.
Okay, so she needs to keep that to herself.
And that was why, and that's what struck me. It was like these people, so that's why I think I definitely agree with your point as far as to say like, they were, like, let's say, even if they were, like, let's say if they lived in the Brooklyn area, um back then in the 50s, it's been a huge change as far as where it's gone, because those people have obviously migrated out, right? And those towns no longer look how they did, crispy clean, in the 50s, 60s, and what have you, before integration like we see today. So I think that's something that has always given me an issue with when it comes to the education system. Is sort of like there's sort of that feeling of being left behind, right? And even George Bush's initiative, "No Child Left Behind," and yet we see on a number of different occasions the kids that are suffering are in fact being left behind on a consistent basis by the government, which has always caused me, hugely, great concern, on that end. But I definitely want to give Solomon a chance to chime in. Solomon, did you have anything that you wanted to add on that?
Yeah. Basically, it comes down to taxes and money, really.
Okay, how so? How do you?
Well, I know in Jersey, obviously, you where your tax bracket is,
Mm-hmm.
the school system is better. For instance, my fiance is a teacher in a pretty high tax area. So, for instance, during this whole pandemic, she gets to keep her job and teach remotely from home
Mm-hmm.
um, on a Chromebook given to her by the school. Now, I'm aware of many other school districts in impoverished areas that teachers were let go. So yeah, taxes, yeah, for this state. I can't speak on every other state, but I know taxes is a huge thing with schooling in New Jersey.
Okay, that. Thank you for that, Aaron. Excuse me. Sorry. Simon, you were saying something before. Hopefully you didn't forget.
No, and then also just the deficits and government funding for the schools, that's always an issue, and it's always an issue, and especially in like the inner city schools where they're not getting adequate funding for the amount of students that they have there. They're using books that are a couple of years old, not really current, and that's another like big problem.
Yeah, but why do you think that is? What do you think the root is for that?
Deficits in the funding. Just not properly allocating that tax revenue, just spending money on things that shouldn't really be spent on, really.
And I agree. I think that to an extent is a huge problem. But I think if we even dive even deeper than that, I think it's just and I don't want to be that guy. That comes in and it's like, oh yeah, it's blacks versus whites. I don't want to I don't want to trivialize it to that extent, but just to some, because obviously there are Latinos, there are other ethnic groups that are within these areas that we don't want to kind of gloss over, that are in these impoverished schools. But at the same token, it's like there's got to be a reason why, on a consistent basis, year in and year out, the money does not. The money's there. I mean, we can't keep on
Yeah.
glossing over the fact that, like, oh, the we need to cut this because of like, no, you're cutting from this because you don't see value in it. In any business, when
Hmm.
you remove assets from a sector of your portfolio, it's because you're not looking to proceed in a way because you don't see the cost risk benefit being in your favor, right? So there's got to
Hmm.
be, and again, I can't speak to it because I'm not in those boardrooms with the town hall meetings and things of that nature where the mayors or the governors of the world sit down and speak about these things in high detail. But at the same token, to an outsider looking in, something there's something sort of maniacal about how they go about just leaving these kids, like Solomon mentioned, with books that are ragged and torn, and even when in our schools when we were at Colonia, remember our history books used to be all ripped up, to for a lot of
Hell
them,
yeah.
to the point where we were missing pages. So if that's happening in one of the most suburban towns in America, who's much to say about a school like that's in the heart of the Bronx or the heart of Harlem, dealing with this stuff. I can't even imagine having to say, oh yeah, my kid's gonna grow up and he wants to be a doctor, but now when he goes to apply to a prevalent school, he's got to work with being having the A+ average in a school where their dropout rate is over 50%.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. No, but again, I think that it's like I said, the parents. You know what I mean? The parents, they have to hold their politicians
Mm.
accountable. If they're not getting the job done, get them out. You know what I'm saying? There's voting all the time in November. Just
Right.
go and vote. But if you don't care enough, because think about it, these people are products of their environment.
Absolutely.
So if I grew up here, like for instance, me and Solomon were both born in Brooklyn. Say my mother had not moved us out here, I could be dead. Realistically, no, on my temp, I could be dead. You know what I'm saying? Or locked up.
Yeah.
Easily, easily. So, had I stayed there, I would have been a product of that. And then say I had a son or a daughter there, I don't know what to teach them besides what I know, which is this, you know?
Hmm. But my thing is too, like to kind of to piggyback off that, like when it comes into the education point, um, because again, your fiance works in a more prevalent area in New Jersey. I think we can all agree. Um,
Hmm.
so her sort of dynamic with students, I think, would be a lot different if she was doing working at like a lean on me school in Patterson. You know what I'm saying? Like the same type of lessons she would be trying to teach in Middletown, the Middletown area, um, would be very different than from if she was working in, again, like the depths of Patterson, Newark, and all that. I mean, don't you think? I mean,
Oh yeah, undoubtedly, her day to day would be completely different because I would only imagine that a big obstacle would be just to get the kids to come to school. You know what I mean? Just to get them to come to school.
right?
She doesn't have to worry about that out here. You
Absolutely.
know, these kids are driving to schools in Range Rovers
Mm,
and Mercedes and Beamers.
Jesus
So yeah,
Christ.
they're going to school. You know, and and I don't. I am I saying no kids in that school cut? No, I'm not saying. But I'm saying the percentage. I don't have the numbers obviously, but I could just based off what I know and what I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that well, first of all, I know it's not a problem. You know, she never told me anything about any kids cutting, and we've been together 5 or going on 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I think the what's that word? The incentive. You know, these kids, hey, you get good grades, you go get you a car. Boom, they get good grades, and they really get a brand new BMW, and they're 17, driving to school with better cars and have someone to teach it. You know, so am I saying that we need to be buying or incentivizing our kids better? I don't really know, but I know that that is a thing that goes on there.
Mm.
But obviously, if you don't have to give, then you can't give. So what incentive? You know, I don't
Wow.
know. You know, this is a very dynamic issue.
Yeah.
Very dynamic.
And see, that's my. Oh,
Solomon?
sorry. Yeah, definitely. So I don't want to. I get so caught up in this stuff. Simon, did you have something?
Yeah, and to just go over like what Aaron said, just those incentives, and when we talk about this subject, we really gotta look at the disparities between the typical household of a people who live in suburbia versus like an inner city. In a suburbia, more likely you're gonna have both parental figures in the
Mm.
home.
Yeah, that's true.
So, little Jimmy, he ain't going to be skipping class because he doesn't have to leave early to go work at, Walgreens to help mom pay the
Right.
bills.
Good point.
He is thinking about, the bigger picture. He's thinking about like the future or worrying about SAT scores when, the other kid, he's worrying about how they're going to eat food that night. What they're going to get for dinner, how they're going to pay the electric bill, how they're going to pay the phone
Mm-hmm.
bill. And school doesn't really, provide a place where children can just not worry about that. You can't go to school and then it's not like it transports you to like a magic wonderland where everything that goes on in your life just like disappears and you're just like, oh, you're just like every other kid, but you're not. You're not like every other
Mm.
kid. You may be poor, you may have a learning disability or whatever, but the current school curriculum is it's a cookie cutter standardized testing type way, and that doesn't work for everyone.
Hmm. Well said. And I think that just branching off that, I think the biggest takeaway is just that when we're looking at those dichotomies that exist, right, between the different students from, let's say, from an urban setting versus a more so of a suburban setting, I think I think that word you use, incentive, is huge, right? Because when you're looking at the urban, from an urban setting, it's like, what sport do you play? You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
what can you offer a huge university that will get you through the door? It's not about like, oh, like, what about, are you in mathletes? Oh, are you on a debate team? When you look at watch these movies on Netflix from these highly established areas, they're looking, these colleges are coming to these kids asking, oh, are you doing these things? These kids are like, oh god, I gotta we have a huge debate coming up, and we're going against this charter school or whatever, and we have to make sure we kill it and all this other stuff. But when you're looking at the urban movies, they're always talking about that next football game that's coming up, that next basketball game that's coming that they can't miss because the scouts are going to be there. Well, what happens when nothing's you can't really say something's going to happen to a kid's brain, but I mean somebody can easily tear their ACL, tear their ankle. So where do we at what point do we hold the teachers and the administrations? I say more the administrations than teachers because the teachers can only work with what they're given, right? At what point do
Yeah.
we put, like Aaron mentioned earlier, these administrations to the fire to say there's got to be a way we can reach these kids to learn that there's more to this world to offer you than your body. You know what I mean? Because that's essentially what they're selling is that it, and this has been the notion from the tail of time. And I mean, I'm Nigerian. You know what I'm saying? Like, my family has grown up on basketball, football, sports is an afterthought. If you got the blessing to do that, great. But they're raised. I was raised to be a doctor, lawyer, and what have you. I'm sure in a lot of other families, they're just happy if you don't go to you stay out of jail before you're 18. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like that's an issue, and that comes down to a lot. Again, it's the home, right? Again, it's the home that people are set up in, but also it's what are people have to live for? I don't
Yeah.
know. That I think that's just something that's always bothered me about the education in America, especially for African Americans.
Yeah. It's funny because Solomon said something when he said it. Like I was like, yeah, I actually I thought about this before
Hmm.
about the family having both parents around. So for instance, what I said about the holding politicians, of course, but it starts with the community. Now, for
Mm.
instance, if I go to a quote unquote, not even quote, Indian community, right?
Hmm.
These people brought over their values, you know, and their community sense of commune, right?
Absolutely.
So now, if I have Indian guy here A and Indian guy here B, if Indian guy A sees Indian guy's B kids doing something, he's going to chastise that kid and tell the father because that's not how we do things.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And you're breaking our culture. So that doesn't fly, and that's not just exclusive to Indians. It's also Chinese people. I've seen it. Like different ethnic groups seem to have this going on in their
Hmm.
communities, and they
It's
also
that
have
that
strong father figures that push this through. And now obviously in the quote unquote black areas, most of fathers are locked up,
Hmm.
and that's not even like me joking. That's statistically speaking.
Right.
So you know, like that goes into it as well. The
yeah,
community.
and then that also plays like a large role on the goals set for our
Mm.
community. Because now we have like parents, like example, Indian parents, Asian parents. They'll be like, my kid, you need to get straight A's, or need to get straight. You got to be the top of your class, and everybody knows that stereotype, and that stereotype is kind of for the most part true. Those communities, those types of people, they do strive for that. They see education as a key
Valuable.
to like
There's value in it.
Hmm.
valuable. Uh, they see that as valuable, but like you said, how lack of father figures, lack of proper guidance. When you have like a single mom and you're just trying to get by, your goals for your kid ain't as high as the Asian or Indian kids. You're not looking for them to get straight A's. Yeah, you would like it. Yeah, you wish they would, but if they got C's or if they even pass, that's good enough for you because that's better than what you experienced in your
Hmm.
own life. So that goal, it's like they don't set the goals high enough.
And I see that, and I think it's generational. Honestly, and then I think through way
Yeah,
of laws, through way of um, the point Aaron made earlier, as far as like administrations that have come and gone, that have seemingly kind of just taken people for granted, which is why and one of another topic we'll speak on in further episodes. Sort of politics at the end. I think they leave way for people like Trump to sort of get into office and continue sort of, and to gain power, because again, like, when you don't listen to a people, this is what their children go on. I mean, children are getting killed, children are they're missing the boat. You know what I'm saying? Like, the expectations, and I think that was a very important word. The expectations for a lot of families are changing as time has gone on, but we're nowhere near where we're supposed to be when it comes to putting the people that look like us in a position of power. And I think it's because those
Yeah.
people in those under in impoverished areas just don't have a sense of what's next, right? They're living sort of day to day, like, I just hope I make it to the next day, as opposed to saying, I guarantee if you ask a kid in Harlem, where do you see yourself 5 to 10 years from now? If they're not in a charter school, the most times or not, they're
Yeah.
doodling, going, I just hope I just hope I'm either not dead or in jail. I've seen these
Yeah. For the most
conversations.
part.
I've seen them. I've seen, I used to work at the Boys and Girls Club even in Lodi, um, and which is by Teaneck. So there's Teaneck, obviously, which is the more, the I would say the more suburban part between Hackensack and Teaneck. And then there's Lodi, which is more of like, there's a lot more at risk youth, right? Because that then is not too far. I believe that's in Passaic County. So when I was working at the Boys and Girls Club out there, you're seeing all these kids. They're doing their homework, and they're just like, they could care less. They can care less. You
Yeah.
you see it. You literally watch it, and you just see how they are just like aloof when it comes to getting their assignments done. Now, if the incentive is there for them to be able to play and run around, right? So then they're gonna run through their homework, and do they have everything right? Probably not. But that's the only incentive they have, is to get out and go play, right? Which for
Yeah.
me is problematic, because it's like the people that are teaching them are not able to, again, because they're only working with what they have. They're not working with what they want to provide. So because of that, these kids are only getting sort of half the love. And so I don't know. It's one of those things where I just feel as though this country has turned their back on the people that look like us, because we we're never going to be at the top of the totem pole in their eyes, or we shouldn't be,
No.
because they're scared.
No. Yep. Yeah, but that's why they have their private schools. And how many people that live in the inner cities can afford to send their child to a
Mm,
private school? Say that parent had all the expectations that Solomon
yep.
pointed out, right? They want this for
Right.
their child. But obviously that child's not going to be able to get it at the public school, and that's not because of the teachers at the public school. Not 100% of the time. I'm not saying every teacher is
Yeah,
a great
absolutely.
teacher. No, I'm not. There are some bad
Right.
teachers out there, but nonetheless, if that person has all the wants to send their child to the school, but cannot afford it, even with grants, because they do offer grants and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. There's help, but say that person still can't because they're working 40 hours one place, 20 hours the next place, and they got maybe 2 or 3 kids, and they getting no child support, and the father's locked up or whatever. You know, what about that person? You know what I'm saying?
Hmm. Uh,
And then that kid winds up dead or in jail, and he could have been a doctor.
and I think that's one of the things for me. Like, that question in itself, is definitely something I want to touch on. I mean, the private school versus public schools is something that I think rings true for a lot of us. I mean, we grew up in the Middlesex County area. So we had the Bishop R's at St. Joe's of the world, um, that were out there. I mean, I couldn't, right? Because it just, again, my parents are Nigerian, so they didn't really know, for coming from that perspective, they didn't really know how to maneuver the whole private school versus public school. I mean, they figure, hey, look, you get A's, those A's translate. You know, I don't care where you go to school.
Yep.
You can go to school in the roughest neighborhood in the world, but if you're getting A's, you better be getting A's. That I don't care. I don't care if there's gunshots going on outside. The A's better be plenty. Otherwise, you're gonna feel like you're getting gunshots with these whoopings. So that's I think
Yeah.
that's like again, I think that's why you guys brought up. It's how you're brought up, and your expectations. I think that's important too as well. But when you're talking about private and public schools, I mean, for people that are American people who have generations put into this, the opportunities to get into these private schools. I mean, I get that's the reason why you're calling it private. But at the same token, what if private schools invested in public schools to that much more? Because again, if the government's not going to do it, I don't see why. And I guess maybe you don't want to start a farming system because maybe that could be problematic in itself too. Which a lot of private schools do, so that way they can get the best basketball players, the best football players. We see the Don Boscos do somewhat of a farming system out of the public schools, so that way they get the best athletes.
Yeah.
Um, and the St. Anthony's, the St. Patrick's. We've seen that. We've gone against that. Me and Aaron, in the sports world. So like we've seen that literally take place where guys are doing 360s between the legs, and layup lines, and with jeans on. Like I've seen that, like personally. Like I'm looking at this like we've never gone against this. Like not in our suburbs. Like I ain't seen any do
Yeah,
a
bro.
dunk, much less a 360 windmill between the legs with jeans on. You know what I'm saying? So like it's insane to think that these kids are getting pulled. This talent is getting taken from these impoverished areas where these kids can now come back and say, you know what, my public school rode for me. They invested as much as they could in me, and now here I am on the world stage, blessing the world, with my talents, and they can't per se.
Yeah. Yep.
I think it also comes back to, the connections, the
Right.
resources too, because at the end of the day, that kid who is, doing the 360 windmill with the jeans on, he's looking to he's not looking to become a doctor. He's looking to
Right.
go to the NBA or the NFL or some type of professional league. So, and his parents are looking for that too because they see it as their
Right.
ticket out.
And that's the issue.
Yep.
That's the issue. Because if he tears an ACL in that layup line doing those 360s with
Mm-hmm.
jeans on, then there goes the meal
Absolutely.
ticket. So like
Yeah.
again,
It's
that's
the
the
what's
issue,
next.
the
It's the
expectation.
what next.
But like for instance, we know well, we don't know him, but Andrew Bynum, he was from Newark. He went to St. Joe's in
Yep.
Edison.
Like 30, was that like 30, 40 minutes away from one another?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
easily. And that's the school he
Yeah.
went to. And then he went to the NBA after that, obviously, uh, and had a pretty decent career. I think he won a
Yeah.
championship, right? Or
Yeah.
two,
Yeah. Definitely
you
won
know?
at least one.
But how many of those
Jeez.
come out
I
of Newark?
mean, Lord. And then when they talk about them, they're talking
Not a
about them as
lot.
if they come from that town. Like you would never know.
Yeah.
You would never know he was from the depths of Newark. His family was from the depths of Newark. You would have thought, oh no, he was a Metuchen
Yep.
kid. The Metuchen press is going to talk about him like he's the second coming, like a homegrown kid. But he's an assassin. I mean, he's literally a mercenary. He's literally a mercenary that's brought
Yeah.
over to reach their programs to new heights. It's insane.
Yep. Just
That's
you.
it.
Just
It's
you.
insane. It's
Use.
insane. But my thing is like, at what point do we get to when do we get to the point where kids are, I don't want to say I want kids to get pulled out of those neighborhoods because of their body, but we're losing, we're not just going to start losing kids if it hasn't happened already. We're losing kids because of their brains too. Because now look, now the kid that, if a kid wants to, I think the kid that's 14 years old, sorry, that has a that is taking Oxford courses, that wants to go to Oxford University, as opposed to going to an HBCU. Like, what, like at what point are we going to be able to get our communities something to offer, right? At what point does a Julio Jones say, like, type kid say, oh, I want to go to Howard instead of going to Alabama?
Well,
It's no,
again, they're
I
looking at
get that,
draft
but that's what
stock.
I'm saying. Like, at what point, right, are we going to be able to, right? I think it would have to take a lot to get to that point.
It would take to get to that point, plain and simple, it would take, intentionality
Mm.
and unity as a
Community,
people in a
community.
community. Yeah. That's what it would take because even like my school, I went for college, I went to like a private, Jesuit
Mm-hmm.
college, St. Peter's. And the people who graduated donated. They gave back to
Hmm.
the university. You know, people are not our people are not really giving back. They're not donating. They're not really in a
Hmm.
position to donate,
Yeah.
to grow. And I mean, I remember like maybe a few weeks ago, I was reading an article about how the HBCUs are kind of losing money because they're not getting that same caliber of students that they used to, and now they're like diversifying more. They're letting a lot more people of different ethnic backgrounds into it because they have to make that money
Absolutely.
somehow.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You
Go
know
ahead,
what?
Aaron.
Uh, the like for instance, say white family A, right? They have two kids. They live in a suburb, obviously a nice area. The kids go to school. One kid comes back, lives in the town. The other kid goes, I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
Arizona, right? It is what it is. Oh yeah, my son was down in Arizona. You see him, Christmas, Thanksgiving, stuff like that. Boom, right? Now, uh, impoverished family, I should say, A, they have two kids, three kids. One goes to college and finishes. That kid leaves,
Mm-hmm.
right? That kid leaves. That kid's not going
Absolutely.
back to the hood. So now, and for the quote unquote white family, that white kid went from one white area to another white area. So it's not like oh he bailed out on us. He forgot about us. Like nah, no, he lives in Arizona. But for the black family, oh you sell out. Oh
Absolutely.
you left. Oh you white now. All this set in the third. It's like It's like crabs in the pot. Everyone's trying to pull
Hmm.
each other down. But they don't want to go back. Who would want to go back to that? You know?
No, that's
No one.
true.
Yeah.
And
So
if
then
they
how
had the
can you? That's
and
where
if
the
they had the
process is
opportunity to
broken.
leave, they would go to.
Yeah. And that's where the process is broken because people get it and they not.
Absolutely.
I'm saying they get it and
And
they
that's
not.
the thing. That's the thing I hear a
So
lot too. Is
that
like, oh, Ice, you should like where a lot of people, like for instance, Fabulous, right? I know Aaron used to tell me stories about how he used to get his chain snatched, out in front of his grandma's house,
yep.
with his Lamborghini outside. I remember like these are things, but the thing is that he still was a face out there. You know what I'm saying? So
Oh
like I
yeah.
think a lot of times it's bringing it. I know it's a sacrifice. I think that's the biggest thing is we say sacrifice, but at the same token, it's investment. I think that's we have to start. Taking those two words and breaking them away from one another because some people on its face value see it as, oh, you're sacrificing. Oh, instead of living in let's say for instance, let's bring it closer to home, right? um if I want to live in a better area, I would say I would live in uh maybe somewhere Hoboken, Edgewater, right? But if I'm from the inner city area like
Mm.
Patterson, Newark, if I'm looking at these areas, instead of saying to myself, okay, it would be a burden for me to downsize and downgrade to buying the same type of property in Newark or Patterson, instead of that mindset where we're always thinking that those areas are less than, how about we blow up these areas and invoke some type of wealth and money system that allows for us to create an economy that says, you know what, we may not be at Edgewater, but hey, I damn sure wouldn't mind raising my kids in this area now. This is what's happening.
I, I I like that point, but think about it. Like I wouldn't do that because the return on investment wouldn't be there for me. Sorry to say,
Well,
but
right
no, because
now,
again, I don't trust
right
the
now it wouldn't be
community.
there though. But that's what I'm saying, because that's the point word. It's an investment though. yeah, it might not be there for the next 5 years, but with your, like you said, Aaron, if you get more involved in your in the politics of your town, right? Because that's an invest. If you're going to get involved in it from an investment perspective, you can't just be 1 foot in and not worried about who's leading behind the pulpit in your respective area, right? You have to.
Yeah,
Otherwise, you're not really engaging in the value of your in the potential value of your investment. You're not seeing how far it could blossom. You're not really giving it a chance. I think if you do those things where you go 100% in, which I think a lot of real estate investors do, right? They're figuring out like, hey, look, the schools are crappy in our area. What can be done, whether through let's figuring out a way where we can incorporate more initiatives that allow for more money to be able to flow back into the teachers and to our the people who are actually going to make the schools worth coming to, right? Because what's going to happen? Those schools start blowing up, people want to start are still going to start moving there, because that's a lot of the reason. When I used to work in real estate, that was a lot of the reason. The first thing people would say to me, well, how are the schools like? That's literally one
yeah,
of the first questions. They're like, hey, how where's the school rated against others in New Jersey or in the county? And you'd have to have that conversation. And as soon as they hear, I mean, you probably want to go to, if you're looking for education more so, as far as how the buses work and things of that nature. I mean, I know they're pretty strict on this, and you have to go into like a whole spiel, a whole sales spiel about, the value, what you're looking for is in this town, but because of parameters such as education and such, now you got to completely throw that, that house that could have been a perfect match for your client gets thrown out the wazoo because of, I don't want to say a small thing, but it's something that could have been easily rectified if the attention was given in the necessary areas. So that's, I don't know, that's just something that I feel as though it's within our reach, it's attainable, but it's just a matter of at some point, and then maybe it's going to take our generation, because again, a lot of these guys that are in these seats now have their hands in a number of different pockets, so those real estate deals where they're building up these huge mega malls and things and such, and these sporting arenas and whatnot, and they're pushing tax money to go there, as opposed to the tax money going back into the investment, which are your kids, the young ones, the under five. You know what I'm saying? Where those,
yeah. But those aren't those people's kids. You know, the person that oversees that school district or that councilman, his kids, those people's kids don't go to
no,
those
absolutely
schools.
not. No, no,
Guaranteed.
absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So they don't
But
care.
that's why I say our generation, right? Like I feel as though our generation of people who are born and bred in the filth, right? Who, I guess, for lack of a better way of saying, I don't say the filth, born and bred in the sort of in the fire, right? Who, because I know someone, like for instance, one of my frat brothers, Christopher Irving, works in Patterson in their school district. He was born and raised in Patterson. I mean, for God's sakes, he had me at like 12 or 1 in the morning for his campaign shirts. I was out in like the fourth district, which is one of the more dangerous areas of Patterson, and I was, scared shitless. Um, and I'm 6'3", but yeah, Christopher Irving, um, he works diligently, in that school district and I think now he's a superintendent, or he's working to become the superintendent. Um, and he's in there, like he's literally, he sees how these kids are being sort of siphoned out to other schools, to Patterson Catholics of the world, to they're losing them to the Don Boscos, losing them to the which is in the Bergen County area. They're losing them to the Paramus Catholics of the world. You know what I'm saying? These kids are getting taken from Patterson, um, because of what they offer them with their body. And so now he's trying to figure out ways
Hmm.
to create initiatives that allow for the mind, right, and the brain power that exists within that city to shine brightly, because it's there. Like there's kids in there that are probably doing that know things about coding and know things about electronics and robotics and such, that are the next the next Stephen Hawking is probably sitting in our midst, and we would never know because he's getting told he's a nerd and for just messing around with Legos
Oh yeah.
because he should be on the block
Yeah.
chilling with the 40 in his hand as opposed to building a Lego set. So yeah, these are I think it's changing the mindset is a huge um is a huge factor in change going forward, and I think Aaron, um I want to go dive a little deeper into the point you made earlier about sort of why you think the issues exist where they do at the sort of the top where it comes to politics. I would ask, like, how do you guys, how do you guys see this changing in your eyes, in your perspectives? Like, how do you see us fixing this problem?
I'll let I'll let Solomon go first, and then I'll.
I think at first, the first thing to fix it, we gotta have
Hmm.
something to offer these kids. You know, that's better than the status quo. Because if you don't get that right, they're not helping them. Provide them with an opportunity for like a brighter. So that's the first improvement that I think needs to be done.
Well, I think that we first have to build the community. I.e., we have to have fathers in the helm with the mothers, obviously, raising these kids together on
Mm,
two incomes. Incomes will obviously allow you to have more options. And then if every house on the block has a two-family home and they're all working hard uh, to have their kids be better than them, now that's a sense of community. Now, again, like in my example before, when Tyrone comes home and he sees his neighbor's son, Jerome, on the block, he'll be like, "Yo, Jerome, what you doing out here?"
mm-hmm,
You know what I'm saying? Like, he can see Jerome around the corner. Like, "Yo,
mm-hmm.
Jerome, what you doing over here?" I'm about to tell your dad. You know what I'm saying? Like that type of
Right.
accountability. And then when he gets home, like, and everybody hates Chris, he's gonna have to deal with that. Either from his mother
Hmm.
or from his father. But like, you have to have that. If this is community, what I know that that Big Mike is raising his kids to sit with the same values that I'm raising my kids without
Right.
even questioning it. That
Mm,
is community. We are all striving for the same goal. So when we get to that point, then obviously you're going to have parents that are investing in their kids and in their kids' future. So those parents will be able to go to these meetings because, again, there's two parents, not one. So they have more time. All right, baby, you go. I gotta work tonight, and then you go next time, and stuff like that.
I mean, I think I can definitely emulate with both sides. I mean, and I think that's you're on the same side. And I think we all are in agreement that something has to shift from the um as far as when we're looking at the dynamics. Because I personally, and I can only speak from a Nigerian perspective, you know, even though my parents were did not get along, Aaron can tell you, like, my ass was not out. Like, when we were growing up, like,
No.
I did not like enjoy the same type of childhood that Aaron enjoyed. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't do the same things that, like, I didn't start going out with Aaron. I've been friends with Aaron since I was 12, Aaron was 13. When we were in high school, much less to say even middle school, Fernando, one of our friends, was talking about, oh, going to parties and this. I didn't even know he was having house parties until high school. Like, I lived down the street. I literally lived down the block from the guy that is speaking about this, and I had no idea. Because guess what? I could not. I lived in an apartment complex in our town. I could not leave the parameters of that apartment complex without getting you know, any type of like sound off. And the only way I could get anywhere away from my apartment complex is if I lied. And thank God for high school, because that's when I was able to start using basketball and football as an excuse to get out the house. Because I would say, "Yeah, mom, I'm going to go. I got basketball practice," and I would come home at like 12 o'clock at night, and I would just say, because my parents were Nigerian, they would just be like, "Oh, they would just figure, oh, that practice was late. Ain't no practice legally allowed to go till 12 in the morning. Like, there's no way you're able to go to a practice and come back at 12 o'clock at night. There's no way that the coach would still have a job if that was the case. But because I had Nigerian parents, that's the only reason why I was able to get away with this. Obviously, my dad left. Um, leaving a little insight about me. My dad and my mom broke up when I was I guess I want to say the summer of my freshman year, and because of that, there was a lot more, because my dad, I used to tell Aaron this all the time. My dad was mad strict, like to the point where I was a big boy. I was sweating bullets every time you call Michael, Michael, come upstairs, come upstairs now, come upstairs, and I'd be shaking. I'd be freaking shaking. So like, I think what my biggest thing is that I definitely connect with some of the things that you guys have mentioned is that having both figures in the house, because there were no games played when my dad was home. There was none. Like no, like I did not like if I left my sisters outside too long by themselves, I got slapped with the hand of God. Like by the time he came back in, I'll never forget that. Like the only man that's ever been able to put me on my back by slapping me is my dad. Like ever. Like pause. Because that sounded crazy a little bit. But like my dad saw that my sisters were by themselves outside for too long. I'm over here thinking, oh, dad, hey, look, I was out playing soccer with some random guys, blah, 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 going crazy. Yo, as soon as he turned the corner, spot out, I'm on my back holding my face like I've been like a slave that got whipped too hard. Like the shit's crazy. Like so, I think that's huge. Like a parent, having both parents in the household. I think as I've gotten older, I think I can definitely see as being important more so than anything because the structure for discipline will be there as a result.
Oh,
And
oh, yeah.
I've seen that firsthand. That shit is powerful because the stuff I could get away with when my mom was versus the stuff I could get away with when my dad was around, it was like night and day. It was literally like night and day.
Yeah, and I don't think my parents was not that strict.
Yeah, now most parents uh most parents are like I was like the stoop kid that never could leave the stoop. Like, Aaron and them would ride their bikes or they would, skateboard or whatever away. And I had to literally put a basketball hoop outside of my apartment just so my friends had somewhere to come see me. Because if I didn't have that basketball hoop, I was not able to go to anybody's house. And tell you, I didn't start going to Aaron's house until what? Till football practice. Until we started having,
Yeah, for the most part.
until I started able to have, and I've been friends with him years before prior. I didn't know what his mom looked like. I didn't even know what his mom looked. We had been friends for years, and didn't even know what his. I'm talking about like friends for like where we were. I was out there like Aaron's like butler, passing out love notes to the girls that he was talking to in middle school, like going up to their lockers, like sir has presented, has requested your audience. Like that's basically I was doing that shit for him when we were literally in middle school. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then getting to, and I still didn't even know what Solomon, what Bubba, what any of them looked like before that time period. You know what I'm
Yeah, it's crazy.
You know what I'm saying? So just to even think about that, that's how strict my parents and my mom knew about Aaron, but that didn't mean that I was going to be able to go hanging gallivanting around. And that's the word she would love to use. You're not going to go gallivanting around. Be out here. Is that what you want to do? You want to go? You want to go smoke like your like your friends? You want to go? You want to go do drugs, Michael? You want to go do? You want to be in a gang? You want to be Justin. I can give you some just in time slaps. You keep playing around. You keep playing around out here, Michael. You're not going. You. If I call your name, and I do not, because we would have to, guys. I'm telling you guys, education. This comes back into this only because of the fear factor. Again, structure, but like when you're raised a certain way, your expectations, like Solomon mentioned, is going to change. And my expectation was do your homework, stay your ass at home, you see your friends at school. That's it.
Yeah.
That's literally it. Like I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent because but at the same token, again, my life, having that structure was something that put me in a position to be where I believe I am today. where I can talk to people. I can go in front of I'm working in the banking industry, and I'm able to sit and talk. I'm on the phone with these people, and they're like, I never would have expected you would look the way you do when I'm speaking to you, because they never would believe it. If I would have told you how many times I get told, "Oh, you sound white," or "You sound this and that," I mean, that's a whole nother topic, a whole nother day. Um,
Oh yeah.
but the how I even sound when I'm talking to C-level people. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking to COOs, global market COOs that are literally the difference between banks doing major business with with high level clientele. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm literally in the same room with these people, telling them how things should go within certain projects. This is not an accident. Like, if I wasn't raised the way I was, I don't think I would be able to sit in the room with these people without a certain level of ignorance.
Good
You
point.
know, what I'm saying. So I think that's where it comes down to, and then I'm blessed on that end. But I thought everybody was being raised the way I was. So when I would see Aaron come into my area all the way from where he lived, when I finally found out where he lived, I was like, oh goddamn! I was like, wow, your mom let you come all the way over here. He's probably thinking like that's not even that far, but I'm thinking, Lord, he just crossed I'm thinking a whole new world. Like I said, brand new. I didn't even know there was parts of Avenel that existed over there. I'm telling y'all think I'm playing? I'm being so yo. I'm telling you, yo. Like, not even to. I wish this was not funny, but like I couldn't ride. I had to ride around the apartment and scream my mom's name every time, just so that way she knew that we were safe. Like every time we got back to the around, because our apartment was like a rectangular shape building. So like every time I rode around, I had to go, mom, mom. And if she didn't hear me say that, she was screaming for the rooftop, Michael, Mike, Christina, Kelechi, where are you? Where are you? And we have to be like, Mom, we're here, we're coming, we're coming, we're coming. Like that's literally the environment I grew up in. So if I felt like if and I thought everybody was going through that, come to find out, no, 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 no. So you can only imagine in inner cities what that is trickling into, and what that's
Wow.
producing itself into is crime, wedlock, all these different things are coming as a result of of structure.
Yeah, I can tell you. I will give you some stories. Uh, we still living in Brooklyn. I was like what, 5 or 6.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I moved out of there after that, but like, I'm just trying to let you know how young I was.
Right.
Like in the summertime, right? The sun don't go down till like 9 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
So my mom would be like, hey, yeah, I can go outside. We go outside. All we had to do was be back by the time the lights came on. I'm like 5, 6 years old outside. I mean, we couldn't leave the block.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We couldn't leave the block. But like when you're 5 or 6, these blocks are long.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Apartments stacked. There's no gaps between an apartment buildings. 1, 2, like you know what I'm saying? Ain't no little alleys.
Right.
So just running up and down the block, like, is that dangerous? Yeah, looking back at it, yeah, you never know. Anyone could have snatched me up, or anyone could be like, hey, kid, you want to make some money real fast?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Not saying I would have did it or not, but you never know.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? 5 or 6 years old, out to that time, just running around. I mean, those are fond memories that I have, but looking back, in hindsight, I'm like, whoa, I wouldn't be doing that. Not in Brooklyn. You know what I'm saying? Not with my kids. No. And my mom, she wouldn't even yell, when we would come,
Right.
because I would be there. I would be there.
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, that's just crazy. Looking back.
Oof. Oh man, yo. I don't know.
5, 6.
That's nuts.
I think that's also why we had freedom when we came out here.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's another reason why, because she was probably like, hey, they was running outside in Brooklyn, so
Yeah.
they're safe out here.
I haven't heard shit. I mean, we never even. I think our town is probably one of the more safer towns, because like we used to have our screen door open sometimes, especially during the summer. And we would go to sleep, wake up, screen door was still open. Like, either my parents were just not really giving the F, or they weren't really watching the news. But it's nuts. And I think that's probably, again, like, where it comes back into, like, I think there's that sense of community. I think it's structure, community, creating expectations for these kids, policy. I think that's a huge thing. But also, I think something I want to, um, one of the, like, the last things I definitely want to touch on before we, you know, uh, we get done with this podcast is sort of like future wise, right? College. So with all of these things being one, right? All of these different experiences, all of the different the meaning of structure and such, that kind of boils into that last kind of stage where you start to really put yourself in a position where you hopefully secure your avenue to a better future, right? Let's say you get out of you're in the ghetto, you're in the hood, and you make it out, you go to college, and then you leave college, but because of what college can, the course you take, you can end up right back in the hood all over again, right? So my question to you guys is, with everything you've seen from the people your maybe experiences too, like, do y'all think college is really all that it's cracked up to be?
Well, I think college is important nowadays. Uh, yes and no. I think that it. I think that you need a college degree nowadays to be. Well, first of all, it just opens way more doors. So yes, you want more opportunities. But do I think college is for everyone? No. Do I think college is worth the price of admission nowadays? No. 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 And there are many civilized nations out there that have free college. And I think again, if we want to proclaim ourselves as number one, and all these different categories, then why don't we have free college? You know?
Hmm. So, so then my question to you, right? Because I mean, from your personal experience, like, did it provide you any value? I mean, do you see yourself, going, doing anything
Uh,
with college anytime? Like, what is your stance on it?
did it give me? No. I mean, at the time, no. But then again, I wasn't ready. I had other things on my mind that I wanted to do. So, you know, I, but now, you know, uh, now that I'm 30, yeah, college could definitely open up, more doors for me. So, but then again, for that price tag I have to pay, it's like, all right, that's kind of insane. You know, it's kind of insane. Unless I were to go to school to become like, a lawyer or something like that, and I could just make a crap ton of money to pay that
Mm.
off. But you know, that I'd have to be in school for at least law school is 3 years, and law school's money too. So this nah, I guess it's like circumstantial. It depends on person to person. If they have that money.
Okay. I mean, and that's, I don't know. Like, for me, from my personal experience, I went through college. I did my 4.5 years. Um, I mean, I honestly, if I wasn't raised in, and I guess this is the double-edged sword, because my family rose me on, you got to go to college. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't care. Obviously, they do care what you do in college, um, but you got to go to college. That's something that you need to do, right? Status wise, so they can brag to whoever they want to brag to. You know, um, that's what you had to do. Uh, I did that, and looking back on, I mean, honestly, if I wasn't raised the way I was raised, I wouldn't have gone to college. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got into real estate, and I dipped my foot in it, so to speak, when I was maybe 25. I want to say 24, 25. If I would have known what I know now, I would have did it as soon as I got out of high school. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would have worked.
Yeah.
Even then, I would have maybe, worked under. I'm not saying worked on a construction company, but I would have tried to get more. And this is something that I have a problem with high schools, is that they don't have curriculums that, you know puts you in a position to see what the real world is like. Like we're getting stuck doing tests on algebra, on cosine, tangent, all this other nonsense that we're never ever going to use
Mhm.
in a day in our lives. But yet, when a real estate contract comes up for somebody to have to sign to sign over to sign to basically like to buy a home, people don't even know how to read that without having a lawyer around. When they if they actually read it, they would realize it's really not rocket science. But because we're not learning transactional law and things of that nature, or even just small little things like how to balance a checkbook, right? Like how to set yourself up with during tax season, right? Which brackets would you fall under, right? Learning the different tax brackets, right? So you know how to better position
Mhm.
yourself for when tax season comes around, right? So you know you're not paying way more than you need to pay. Like these are things that I would have rather learned in school than some of the nonsense that we had to sit there and kind of uh, deadly kind of drone ourselves into. So by the time I got into college, I'm thinking, oh, I want to be a neurosurgeon, or I want to be a neurologist. After going through 3 years, I realized I don't have the I really don't have the passion to be a neurologist. I'm sitting here; these kids are studying at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm out partying. Like I don't want to be a fucking neurologist. So now, I waste 3 years in college, and before I even knew it, I had to literally hustle to figure out a major just to get out of there on time, somewhat. And I ended up getting stuck with an American Studies degree. Please don't ask me what the heck that covers, because I still to this day won't even know how what to do with that major. And no, I'm not working in that field because it's again I don't even know what the heck you'd even do with an American Studies major. You know what I'm saying? That's the problem with going to a liberal arts, college. They just start making up shit. So I mean, I think just to finish off that last topic, I think colleges, sort of to summarize it on my from my perspective, I just don't. I went through college, did the 4 years, 4.5 years, and that just didn't really for me. It just did not. It never felt like I was gaining anything of value out of it. Honestly, to be frank, and I think it's because I didn't have a sense of what I really wanted to do. It was more so of just I went there just because. Um, so looking back on it, I really wouldn't have gone. I mean, I'll say I wasted $20,000 plus, like 30, $40,000, and I got a degree that I'm never going to use. You know what I'm saying? So that I mean, for me, college was an investment on making connections with other people more so than anything else. Lasting relationships, but outside of that,
But
education
then,
wise, it wasn't there.
but then the only question comes back to is like your current position now. Would you have been able to go for an interview without a college degree?
Yes.
Okay. Then yeah, you didn't need one.
Nope. That's what I'm saying. That like if like because the way I was able to kind of, I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you, it's an interesting path that I took to get to where I'm working, the industry I'm working in now. But it was because of the consulting firm I worked through is able to sort of provide you enough training to get you through the door of the banking industry, and then it's kind of you have to kill the interview to make them, to believe that you're able to do the job, right? And then once
Yeah.
you're on the job, you learn literally on the job. Like the first 2 months, you're literally learning everything about the bank, the team you're on, the infrastructure, policy procedures. Like you're literally just inversing yourself for months on that, and then by the time you start to actually do the work, you've already taken that time to get to know everything around you, all the systems, the players that are involved. You get all that down. I didn't. I got literally college was not in my purview. I didn't get anything out of it. So, but yeah, that's literally my take. I just college was is I think it has value for certain people and doesn't for other people. I feel like you can get to your end result with certain careers without using college. Do I think my if I wanted to work in this field like passionately, um, from like day one, would college have definitely helped? Absolutely. If I went in with a finance degree, I wouldn't have had to. go through a round of robin for 5 years, right after college. Well, I mean, I would say 4 years. I started when I was 25, so like 3, 4 years after college, I could have just started in working at a bank at after I graduated, and then boom, I would have gotten to where I worked at eventually. But I kind of just skipped that part by going through this consulting firm. So I kind of skipped 6 years. So it's a blessing because I get paid like like I've been working in the industry for like 6 or 7. But yeah, I would have rather been able to say I worked at J.P. Morgan when I was at 23 years old, as opposed to you know trying to figure
Yeah.
out where I was going to do next. But yeah, Simon. I mean, how about you? I know you had an interesting sort of journey through college.
Yeah. I went I went abroad to study for 1 semester, and that was an interesting experience.
So what about that experience kind of stood out for you?
It's just, just like everything. Like I went to China and studied abroad in Sichuan, China for about a semester, and
Hmm.
just like you know, the way how I was just in a different country, how I was perceived, how classes went, everything was like pretty much different. Now, when you're studying abroad, there's two types of programs. You're gonna get one of those programs where it's like, yeah, you're actually like really going to school abroad. And then there's other programs where it's like a little bit more easier. It's not as, hard. You're really there just to like taking everything like culturally,
Hmm.
almost like you're being an exchange student. So the amount of like work that you have to do is not that hard, and then most classes are pass fail because they already know that students are going there and they're gonna explore, they're gonna drink because the laws is different. They're gonna go like to different clubs.
Right.
So really, some programs make it mainly just about the experience rather than the education. But mine was a little mixture of both. But I was, fortunate enough to go to one of the main Chinese campuses and take, a few classes there. And those classes was tough, man, like
Hmm.
real tough. Like I made it through by like the skin on my teeth. And if I was in America, I would have like passed that class with like flying colors. But just the level of, difficulty, it's on a different, spectrum over there. And then also I got to, really look at how they do education there. And I remember one day I was walking with like one of the Chinese girls that I met out there. She was my friend, and she was like showing me around and stuff. And I saw all these like kids in like sweatsuits and stuff. And it was like late. It was like maybe around like 9, 10. And all these kids is like flocking out on the streets. I'm like, do they have like some type of sports gathering or something? And she's like, oh no, that's just the high schoolers getting out of school. And I'm like, what?
Huh?
I saw those same kids at like 7 a.m.
Jesus.
And I'm like, yo, she's like, oh yeah, they go to school all day. I'm like, all day? Yeah, all day. They go to regular school, and then after they go to regular school, they go to like another school. I'm
Jesus.
like, for what? And I was like, oh, because in China, it's really your future is kind of determined on like how well you do in those tests, the standardized tests and state tests that they have there.
Right.
Like college over there is like practically almost free. Like the better you do on tests, the less money you have to pay.
Right.
So these kids are not they're not hanging out, they're not, smoking, they're not drinking, they're not having parties, they're legit studying all day, every day.
Hmm.
And it just, opened my eyes to you know, how education is like, in different parts of the world. And
What?
it made me like feel a little bit like, mad because we got kids in America who they barely want to read a sentence in a book, or they can't read a sentence in a book, and you got like kindergartens over here reading 2 books a day,
Hmm.
just flying through the
Jesus.
books,
Jesus.
doing all type of stuff. They already know algebra.
Oh. So would you have done? So I guess to bring it, back in. So without, if you didn't go to college, do you think you still would have taken that opportunity to go abroad without college?
Um, no, because college kind of made it affordable. It was more affordable for me to go abroad and study than it was for me to stay in my own country.
Hmm.
It was
Interesting.
cheaper, you know.
Interesting.
So I don't think I would have had the same opportunity to go study abroad and experience that.
If you didn't go through college.
Yeah, if I didn't go to college, I don't see
Ah,
myself, you know, traveling to China. I barely see myself traveling to different states.
right.
Yeah.
Hmm. Okay. Um. All right. So I mean, I think that I think that kind of that kind of does. I mean, that was. Thank you for that, Solomon. I mean, I think at the end of the day, what we're all looking to see from education, um, from at least the African American perspective and the African perspective, is just. I think we're just looking for effort, right, from the powers that may be, as well as not also taking accountability in our own communities to say this is not enough. Like this ain't it. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's because I know a lot of times people want to put the onus on the government. They want to say, "Oh, the government," but no. Sometimes you gotta help. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? So that way they can see it and go, you know, they're there. At least they're trying. You know what I'm saying? The homes are complete. They may not be getting along, but the homes are at least complete. You know what I'm saying? Like the structure's there because you're not going to create a building if the foundation's messy. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's something that, my biggest thing with, kind of from this conversation, I definitely learned a lot, in itself. I think that foundation is more important than anything else, um, in my view. How about you guys?
Yeah, I
yeah,
completely agree with you.
yeah. So do I. I think we hit a whole bunch of topics and had a great open discussion about it. Um, I do think that the topic itself is just like so deep. We didn't plan on going this long, but you just start pulling that string, and then it's like, and this is connected, and this is connected. What about this? So that was a great topic to have.
Yep, yep. Um, so yeah, man. I'm glad. I'm glad to introduce you guys to us. To here at M.A.S Media. Um, and I hope you guys look out. Our next episode uh, is going to be just as hard hitting as this episode, and we're looking forward to what the content we're able to bring you guys going forward. So this is Mike.
Definitely, definitely.
This is Mike signing out.
This is Aaron, A White, A Dub signing out.
This is your boy Solo signing out.
All right, talk to you guys
All right,
soon.
y'all.
See you next week.